Welcome to Sovah Says. What a wild week one we saw in the NFL this past Sunday. As we move on into week two, there are things that we need to talk about, trends that we saw last week, teams that we didn't see coming that were unexpected victors over the weekend. We need to examine what was real and what was simply just an illusion this past week. So as we go through our 32 team rankings, you may notice compared to last week, it may be a little bit more rapid fire on your favorite team. That's so that we can still talk all 32, but have the discussion and the talk about what teams that we really need to emphasize their week one as they head into week two. So as we look at the rankings coming into week two after as we said earlier, a wild week one, the Arizona Cardinals remain at 32. They put up a heck of a fight. They showed a lot of energy, but right now they just don't have the talent to compete. At 31, the Carolina Panthers, not the debut I'm sure Bryce Young wanted. Jesse Bates seemed to know where he was going with the ball with 2 interceptions in that game. So Carolina drops a couple pegs for me because these next two teams each moved up a spot. The Houston Texans, although in a loss to the Ravens, showed some spunk, showed some fire, showed some promise under DeMeco Ryans. And I think they're going to be a team that even though they may not pull out a win every week, they're going to give you everything they've got. The Indianapolis Colts, they have something in Anthony Richardson. He did get hurt at the end of the game. We'll see how serious that was. We don't think it's too serious, and it'll keep him out this week, but maybe it's something lingering that goes on. However, without Jonathan Taylor in the lineup, still a good performance from the Indianapolis Colts. The Chicago Bears, they moved down 6 spots to number 28. They played their divisional kryptonite. We talked about that in the intro here. Their divisional kryptonite is the Green Bay Packers. And with Jordan Love, the Jordan Love era effectively starting week one, they got taken to the woodshed. That's a tough loss for the Chicago Bears. The Denver Broncos, despite a loss late to the Raiders this week, they remain at number 27, but they still are who they are. A team looking for an identity on offense, a team with a quarterback who doesn't look like himself and Russell Wilson. Their own one, they remain at the 27 spot. The Tennessee Titans, after a loss to the Saints, they come back 5 spots. What did they show us? Everything we talked about last week. They are looking for a quarterback. Ryan Tannehill did not look like the answer last week. May have been seeing ghosts in the pocket. And we're going to find out if it's time to turn to one of those young guys in the next week or two. The Pittsburgh Steelers fall to number 25. This is our biggest drop of the week. They looked completely overmatched in their game at home against the San Francisco 49ers. So everyone's favorite preseason darling, after Kenny Pickett's 5 touchdown drives and 5 drives against backups, they really showed, 1 week who they are. That a team that is going to be overmatched each week, but they ran into a buzzsaw. They drop 11 spots for the Pittsburgh Steelers. They are at 25. Another team, our second biggest fall of the week, the New York Giants. They lose to the Cowboys big. The Cowboys are their divisional kryptonite. Dak Prescott seems to own the Giants every time he plays them. I believe he's undefeated in his career against the Giants. They lose on Sunday night, 40-0. They were never in this game. They were just completely outmatched in every single way. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they pull off the upset. I don't think anyone had them beating the Vikings. They move up 3 spots. So big win for Baker Mayfield, who we saw some reports this morning. Sounds like he figured out the defensive signals and was able to help him run the offense against big days for Justin Jefferson. We'll get to that. But the Buccaneers win. They move up 3 spots. The New England Patriots, they are our number 22 team. They moved up. Let's get back to them. They moved down 2 spots. But you know what? There's a lot to be hopeful for with the New England Patriots. They got down early. They got down big early they got down big early to the Philadelphia Eagles early and fought their way back, scored a touchdown with about 3 minutes left in the game that had the game within a score. The Philadelphia Eagles are a loaded team, and you'll see where their ranking is in just a minute. But the New England Patriots fought back. Mac Jones had a pick six early, didn't show the best effort going after to make the tackle, but what he did to regroup and get his team back in the game was something that can be looked at, despite them moving down 2 spots with the loss. It could be looked at as a positive, and New England's just going to be a tough, scrappy team, I think, that we're going to see throughout the year. The Washington Commanders, 1-0. They move up 2 spots, but they were the ones that beat the Arizona Cardinals, and it wasn't as convincingly as we would have hoped out of the Washington Commanders. Still figuring out their way under their new quarterback, Sam Howell. I feel a little disappointed, but you know what? Washington, you move up 2 spots. You got to be happy with what you did. A win is a win, obviously, in the NFL. You don't get style points. We've heard these things over and over. But moving up 2 spots in the rankings is still a good thing. Getting into the win column to keep pace with Dallas and Philadelphia is also a very good thing. So the Washington Commanders come in at number 21. Here's one of our big risers, the Atlanta Falcons. Were previously at number 28. They move up 8 spots to the number 20 spot. They took on the Carolina Panthers and beat them pretty convincingly. We talked about Jesse Bates and his 2 interceptions. Those were huge. Bijan Robinson, wow. The play that he made on his touchdown, he's every bit the alien that we talked about him being, and that was quite a debut for him. I look for his touches to go up and for us to just see more and more. It looks like we're looking at the early Rookie of the Year favorite out of Atlanta. The Minnesota Vikings tumble after their loss to the Buccaneers. They fall 7 spots. Justin Jefferson had a huge game, but it wasn't enough. The Vikings couldn't stop the Buccaneers enough on defense, and so they came out as losers. Seattle Seahawks, they are our number 18 team. They played their divisional kryptonite, the Los Angeles Rams, this past week. Matthew Stafford returned. Seattle kind of, kept it close, but in the end, they could not solve the Rams offense. Geno Smith did not have the greatest game. He did throw a touchdown to DK Metcalf at one point early. But Seattle, that's a tough loss to have at home to start the season. So Seattle is another big tumbler in our rankings. They fall 7 to our number 18 spot. A team, the New Orleans Saints, that won. They took care of business against the Titans. The Derek Carr era starts off positive. They move up 1 spot in the rankings to the number 17 spot. We look forward to watching New Orleans. I think we're going to just see a team that's going to be the class of their division, although Atlanta may have something to say to that. Looking forward to that matchup. But the New Orleans Saints take care of business at home to start the season. They beat the Titans. They move up 1 spot to our 17 spot. The Las Vegas Raiders, they pull out a win late against the Denver Broncos and get them to move up 3 spots in our rankings to number 16. Jimmy Garoppolo looked comfortable under Josh McDaniels, which makes sense. We talked about that last week, how McDaniels was going to be a better fit for Josh McDaniels, obviously having a history and playing in that offense together in New England. The Raiders, they're going to be another scrappy team. They're going to be able to get after the quarterback. They're going to stay in games if they can control the clock with Josh Jacobs and Jimmy Garoppolo continues to make plays in the passing game. Las Vegas is going to be a team that is going to contend for the AFC West. Now let's move up to some of our really big jumpers. We have a tie at the biggest jumps of the week. So let's talk about the Rams first. The Rams move up 10 spots to number 15. Matthew Stafford returned, and Matthew Stafford looked really good. He looked like the Matthew Stafford of old. They go into Seattle and win and get a huge divisional win. no matter what, whenever the Rams play the Seahawks, whether the Seahawks are the much better team, the Rams have always played Seattle tough, no matter where. This is one of those divisional kryptonite games, obviously, as we've mentioned a few times. Matthew Stafford, a healthy Matthew Stafford, is going to make the Rams an elite team. Not an elite team, but an above average team like we have them ranked here at number 15. Not having him last year, and they did this on Sunday despite not having Cooper Kupp. They found new answers in the passing game. The Los Angeles Rams, if Matthew Stafford can stay healthy, are always going to be a scary team to play. And as a Bengals fan, they come to, and I know that's why you come to this initially, is because we're on the Wincinnati channel. The Rams face the Bengals on Monday night in 2 weeks, week 3. It'll be interesting to see that matchup and how they look, how both teams progress this week. Our other big riser, the Green Bay Packers. They took on the Bears. They move up 10 spots. They throttle the Bears. The Jordan Love era gets started in a really big way. Aaron Jones has a very nice game for the Packers. What can you say? We said that we had some questions last week, and we didn't necessarily want to take the cheese on Green Bay. But what they did in a huge win over the Bears, that's another divisional kryptonite game. The Packers always have the Bears number, but the Packers have always had a Hall of Fame quarterback in these matchups. Well, in the last, 30 years they have. So what the Jordan Love era started was more of the same. And we will see how, once they play another team that they don't necessarily always own, we'll see how the Packers do. But for this past week, moving up 10 spots to 14 in our rankings, which take into account, obviously, what happened the past week, how much we trust teams going forward, and where they were previously ranked. For us, the Green Bay Packers, and for me, the Green Bay Packers are ranked number 14. At number 13, wow, what a game this was in Los Angeles at SoFi. The Chargers and the Dolphins. The Chargers fall at home to Miami, so they move 3 spots down. They were previously ranked number 10. They fall at 13 this week. But a lot of positives, especially on the offensive side of the ball, which we should expect from the Chargers from week to week. Austin Eckler looked like the guy. Justin Herbert had a really good game. They found a new answer at tight end. The receivers still played well. Mike Williams had to leave for a moment with an injury, but did return to the game, which is kind of standard protocol, unfortunately, for him in his career. But the Los Angeles Chargers, they played one of the top teams in our power rankings in the Dolphins. So, there's some positives to take out of that game. They wish they would have stayed, on the winning side of it, obviously. But lots to still be excited. So the Chargers they only slide 3 spots back. The next 2 teams we're going to look at, those were some big falls for some of the elite teams over the past couple years. So let's start with the Buffalo Bills. They dropped 7 spots to our number 12 spot after losing to the Aaron Rodgers-less New York Jets on Monday night in overtime on a punt return touchdown. What a way to lose to a team that, all the hype going in for the Jets was Aaron Rodgers. And for him to now, we know, tear his Achilles on the 4th play of the game was devastating. That should have been enough for the Bills to see blood in the water and go after him. But the Bills were playing the Jets, and Josh Allen traditionally struggles at the Jets. This is another divisional kryptonite game. We saw it firsthand. Josh Allen throws 3 picks, loses a fumble, just does not look like the effective, dominant quarterback the one-man army, was able to throw hit Stephon Diggs for a touchdown. But it just wasn't enough. If you would have told me before the game with no Aaron Rodgers that they would have played, the Jets, I wouldn't have expected it to go to overtime. But knowing that was one of those kryptonite games, and you're going to be able to, maybe we should take a shot every time I mention the word kryptonite on this show. I would have told you the Buffalo Bills would have come out with a W, but what happened was you can't turn the ball over 4 times, and you can't have special teams blunders, and that's effectively and ultimately what cost the Bills. They dropped to 0-1. They stumbled to the 12th spot, but they are one of those teams I still have confidence in to move their way up this week and throughout the season. The other team with a big stumble, obviously, on a Bengals channel, we've got to talk about this game. The Cincinnati Bengals drop 8 spots from the number 3 spot out of the top 10 to number 11 after falling to Cleveland in Cleveland and getting the brakes beat off them. Let's be honest. They lost 24-3, and if their defense didn't force 2 turnovers, it probably would have been worse. Now, there was weather affecting both teams. What we saw from Joe Burrow, we've never seen before. A career low in passing yardage, a really bad completion percentage. He was only sacked 2 times. Whether you want to take that as a positive or not, we'd love for that number to be 0, obviously. They did get a nice game from Orlando Brown Jr., who only allowed 1 pressure. But Joe Burrow did not look like Joe Burrow. They showed the sideline multiple times as the Bengals offense wasn't on the field, rubbing the knee, working on the calf. He just didn't look like himself at all. Obviously, in the rain, he had a hard time. He struggled to grip the ball, eventually went to a glove that, sort of came on and off intermittently. But the Joe Burrow that Bengals fans and the rest of the NFL knows, when he sees pressure and he is forced to escape the pocket, he's still looking downfield and looking for a kill shot. We did not see that this past week. What we saw was a Joe Burrow that when it came time to escape, was looking to hot potato the ball to anybody he could find, and was not looking to run downfield and pick up extra yardage and use his legs. I don't know if soft tissue injury is in his head. I don't know if he was feeling some tightness, and that's why they were continuing to work on him, or if he didn't feel confident in his footing on the natural grass in the rain. He did not look like himself. All his throws were to the sideline. I think they tacked the middle of the field once or twice. And that's not going to do it, especially on a team that's going to bring a lot of heat and going to force, and they're going to play man-to-man, and they needed to be able to get the passing game going. What we saw out of the run game at times was very promising. The best drive that they had all game was a drive that heavily emphasized Joe Mixon. And I would have loved to have seen Zach in that element, and seeing that his quarterback couldn't grip the ball and definitely couldn't move the way he wanted, establish more of the running game and get Joe Mixon going, get Travion Williams going. There was one carry where Travion got it, and there was a run to be had. There was a hole, and he slipped and fell, and obviously that hurt. But in the elements, in the rain, they needed to adjust better, and they needed to go towards a heavy run offense, and they didn't. And they needed to stick to it, and they didn't. And ultimately, the 3 and outs and the poor special teams and the way they couldn't flip the field. Once Cleveland just made an occasional play in the passing game and stuck to Nick Chubb, and the runs and started to come, that was it. And that's why I have Cleveland jumping up 7 spots, 1 ahead of the Bengals, to get into the top 10 here after a big win at home. And we'll see. I mean, this was the biggest divisional kryptonite game. The Bengals had won the previous matchup, but before that, Cleveland had won 5 of 6 and had won 5 straight at home against Cincinnati. So for whatever reason, Cleveland just has Zach Taylor and the Bengals number for the most part. And on Sunday, they showed that in every single way as they won in all 3 facets of the game and outcoached them. So Cleveland, kudos to you. You move up 7 spots. You're at number 10. Let's see if Deshaun Watson can get that passing game going, because it was lackluster in the rain on Sunday, but it didn't matter. You did everything else so well and dominated 24-3. Another riser, the Detroit Lions, in front of everyone on Thursday night, the kickoff game against the defending champion Chiefs. Detroit gets the win in Kansas City. They move up 4 spots. They're 1-0. What a win for Detroit. We talked about last week, Detroit was a team that needed to just take that next step. Prove it to us. Show us. Take that next step. Move up the ladder. That's what they did. They are 1-0 and on a high here after defeating the Kansas City Chiefs. Brian Branch with a huge pick 6 in that game. So lots to be excited about in Detroit going forward. The Jacksonville Jaguars, they move up 1 spot. Not a convincing victory against the Colts, but obviously in that division, a win is a win. You move up. You continue to advance. Jacksonville looks like a strong team. And this upcoming week, they get a big test in the Kansas City Chiefs, who get a couple of we expect to get a couple of their big-time players back for that matchup. We talked about the New York Jets and unfortunately losing their quarterback for the season. It is now the Zach Wilson era. So this is the lone team who, despite a huge win, still falls 3 spots because of the trust factor that we have going forward with the Jets. Look, the Jets, with their defense and special teams, they're going to be feisty and they're going to be a tough out every single week. Now we just need to see what version of Zach Wilson we're going to get. The Jets have said that we're not making any changes. We're sticking with Zach Wilson. He's our guy, despite Tom Brady being out there, despite, some other veterans that would love an opportunity to be a part of this Jets team. It's Zach Wilson's team. And if it's the Zach Wilson of last year, then we're going to get more of the same. But if Aaron Rodgers' presence around Zach Wilson in camp and in the preseason is what we think we saw and some of the positives we saw in the preseason, then the Jets are going to continue to hover in the top 10, and we'll see. But huge win, a nice game played by Zach, and we'll see what happens with the Jets moving forward. The Dallas Cowboys, another one of our huge risers, they move up 9 spots. They score on defense. They score on special teams. They scored on offense. They came every which way, and their defense, which looks like it may be the best in the NFL, they hung a goose egg on a team that went to the playoffs. And this is another divisional kryptonite game. Take a shot. We will see what Dallas looks like going forward, but they just always seem to have the Giants number, and they showed it on Sunday night in front of everyone. Our number 5 team drops 4 spots. That's the Kansas City Chiefs, who we just talked about falling to the Detroit Lions. Chris Jones in attendance has signed a 1-year deal with the Chiefs to come back or to restructure and move forward. So he basically gets a new deal. He'll be a free agent end of the year. We will see if he's able to play this week in their huge matchup with the Jaguars. They really could have used him, although their defense played well, but there were times where they could have used him right in the face of Jared Goff, and that would have helped. We think that Travis Kelce and the knee will be healthy enough to go. He tried to give it a go, but they realized that morning that it wasn't going to work. but they could get Travis Kelce back. They need somebody to catch the ball. They need somebody to hold on to the ball. And Kelce usually takes the eyes of 3 defenders on every single play, so they could really use that back in the offense. The Baltimore Ravens, they move up 4 spots simply for taking care of business. Took care of a Texans team. They moved to 1-0 on the season. You know, Lamar Jackson, was it rust? Didn't look like. I think, you know, the hype was off the charts for him with these receivers. Zay Flowers, the rookie, had a really nice game with, you know, 7 catches, I believe, for 89 yards. He looked like he had all the wiggle and all the moves that a lot of people expected for him. A tough injury loss, though, losing J.K. Dobbins for the year. So, you know, our heart goes out to another player going out week 1 that we would have loved to have seen the whole season. Their next test is going into Cincinnati to play the Bengals. They look to be a little nicked up. Maybe they'll get Mark Andrews back healthy this week. But the Bengals are looking to get back on the right track. Baltimore comes in. You know, we remember what happened in the playoffs last year. We're going to have to see if the Ravens defense can continue to give Cincinnati fits. But, you know, Cincinnati won those last 2 matchups despite that. So this is going to be a great game. This is a divisional game that's always, you know, pretty close, usually, except for, you know, when some injuries were involved. Another team moving up 4 spots, the Miami Dolphins. They move up to the number 3 spot. Tua Tagovailoa looked great. The passing game looked great. They schemed all kinds of different ways to get Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle open. They look every bit as fast as they needed to be. Now, their defense could use some work. The Chargers were able to put up a lot of points on Miami. But if Miami is going to be able to score like that and move as quickly as they did, and Tua is going to look as decisive as he was on Sunday, they're going to be a tough out. They are going to be a really, really tough team. The Philadelphia Eagles, they stay put at number 2. They took care of business. They looked great in the first half. They looked like it was going to be one of the more dominating performances of week 1. But in the second half, they let New England bring it back and get back to within a score. So Philadelphia still looks talented. They still look like there's not a real weakness on their roster. So they just stay put at number 2. The San Francisco 49ers, they move up 5 spots. We have a new number 1, and deservedly so. What they did going into Pittsburgh and taking care of business against the Steelers was huge. Last week, we talked about some X factors, some question marks that we had about the 49ers. Well, they answered every single one of them. Brock Purdy was still that guy. Looked every bit as comfortable as he was. And this is going against what we think is going to be a very good Steelers defense. He looked like he had no issues. Found Brandon Ayuk for a couple touchdowns. Looked great against the blitz. So I don't think that's a question mark anymore. Nick Bosa signs the extension earlier in the week. They get him back. That's no longer a question mark for their team. Christian McCaffrey looked healthy, looked really good running the ball, had a really long touchdown run on Sunday. That doesn't look like a question mark to me. The San Francisco 49ers look like a team that is ready to display all of the talent that they've got. They look like they're ready to take it to the next level. We may be looking at, you know, a repeat of the championship game from a year ago in the NFC. Hopefully they stay healthy enough and don't have to go to they went to their 3rd string quarterback and had to put in an injured quarterback because that guy got hurt. So the San Francisco 49ers rise 5 spots. They are our new number 1. We'll see how long they last there. So a really, really exciting week one is everything that, you know, from an excitement standpoint, you could ask for, although we, as a Bengals fan, we would have loved to have seen more offense and a win in Cleveland, but we get to settle things at home this week. So that's going to be the show for this week. If you follow me on Twitter at Ryan_Sovah_Yunt or the Wincinnati Pod, give us your top five. Tell us if you thought that my rankings sucked or you liked them. Who you thought was too high, who you thought was too low. Let's have a discussion. So I'll see you on Twitter. I'll see you on X, whatever we're calling it. And we'll see you back here again. You can see it every Wednesday. We will release a breakdown of our 32 teams, and that will be on the exclusive Wincinnati YouTube channel. This show is called Sovah Says. These are my power rankings. Love them or hate them. So we'll see you next week. Thanks for coming by.